me a lot, but I want to say it here that I'm the person behind domestic workers being included in COIDa. I do the ground floors. I'm the ground force. I did the spade work in this case of Maria Mahlangu until it reached a constitutional court. Yes, along the way, there were
the agencies that do this, are you happy with the work that they do?
there's a lot of exploitation of domestic workers there. I don't know how they operate, but what I've heard from the domestic workers, they are not registered with the UIF. They don't even know. They don't even know where to go if they have problems. Whether
With us,
those are acts of extreme cruelty. They don't take them because they feel sorry for them, that they want to employ them. They take them because they want to exploit them. They want to slave them, to enslave them so that they work without stopping. I'm telling you, black women as employers, not all of them, I must not be misquoted, not all of them, but many of them are madams from hell. They treat...
I don't want you to be afraid. Are they white people?
Yes, they are white people. And
are they Afrikaners?
They are Afrikaners. And we must put it straight that it has to do with her background, her race, and that she's a woman. But domestic workers in South Africa are black women who, most of them come from poor background, and a little bit older woman. They don't, as you're saying, yes. The young ones, maybe they fear that they will have the affairs with their husbands or whatever. So what I'm saying, and I always say that the domestic workers should know why they are there in the first place. They are not there to destroy marriages.
Dumela, ko pele re le lebeletse go na le kgopelo e le goreng e re can you please just be cautious, or if una le matsapa in terms of go lebelela graphic content, maybe o emenyana, or if it will trigger this thing that we are going to show, o tla e bona ko pele ge re tlo bolela ka mme le goreng o lumile ke dimpya. She was attacked by pit bulls, and she unfortunately suffered a serious injuries, but we are going to show them. This is also an appeal to say those who can contribute in helping, please assist the lady, but continue watching as support. Thank you very much. All right. All right, thank you very much. Please tell the audience who are you and where you from.
My name is Mashiane. I'm from Mpumalanga. I was born in Mpumalanga in Wheatbank, and I was brought up by my grandparents in KwaNdebele, and I attended school there. I started to work in Mpumalanga as a domestic worker at the age of 18 years.
At the age of 18?
Yes. When I was studied 8, I was told to leave school. I'm from a poor family.
Okay.
Yes, my background is from a family who had challenges. So I was asked by my grandmother to go and look for a job to work and assist in the home. So the first work that I did was domestic work, because I didn't know anything. I only knew how to clean the house. So I corresponded my matric while I was working as a domestic work through Tamelin College.
Oh, that's brilliant. Tabumbeki did his matric in Tamelin, I think. He was suspended, he was sitting at home. So what is Thakazelo do you respond to? Umkandla, ukhabu. Yes, everything. Okay, for the record, I think let's take out the disclaimer. We are not related, ne?
Yeah, we are not related.
As a corruption, as a...
We are not related.
Okay, thank you. I love the work that you do. There's a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to the work that you do. You somewhat defend, so you are a public protector for women in domestic settings. My question is, you went into it by the circumstances that led you to it. If you had a choice, would you have chosen a difficult path, or because you fell in love to it, you stayed in it?
if I had a choice, or
Yes.
if I had money, I wanted to be a social worker. Helping other people is in my blood, because
Okay,
I wanted
yes.
to be a social worker. I couldn't afford to pay for that at the university. So domestic workers are part of my life. And I'm so connected with domestic workers, and with their struggles, their plights. Sometimes I take everything about them personally. It's as if this is happening on me. If you step
Yes.
on a domestic worker's toe, I feel the pain.
Okay, you, because you defend women and domestic workers in particular, do you have male domestic workers?
Yes,
That-
we do. We do have male domestic workers. Yes, I'm a woman human rights defender, but I also protect the rights of men who are domestic workers. We do have a few of them in our union, and if they come looking for assistance, they do get help. Domestic workers are domestic workers, men and women, all of them.
Okay.
But when coming to women, I'm an activist. I'm a feminist. And being a feminist doesn't mean that I'm anti-men. Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very good way of saying it. You just love women more. Yes, you just concentrate on loving women. Doesn't mean you hate. Thank you very much. Now I want us to talk. What is the worst case that you remember? I know there are a lot of cases. What is the worst case that you remember in this field?
The worst case that I remember, I'm dealing with it now as we speak. I was busy with it at the office. It's a case of Selina, Kokolosi, a domestic worker who was beaten by 3 pit bulls in Northwest in Potchefstroom while she was working in the kitchen. The employees were not there. In that incident, she lost her nose, her upper lip, her ears. Her grandchildren were afraid to go to her because they couldn't recognize her. What's even worse is that she was not compensated by the employers. They even failed to pay her last salary. She was beaten by those pit bulls on the 25th of January in 2022 on her payday. She never got that salary. What I have seen, and I'll speak about it, is that when they go to court, they bring 3. I was in the Potchefstroom court last month, January, on the 9th. They bring 3 lawyers in court. 3 lawyers in court. Instead of taking accountability of what happened today, yes, it was an accident, but where did it happen? The safety of Selina Kokolosi was in the hands of her employers in their property. They should have made sure that their dogs are locked far away or chained or leashed, whatever, far away from the domestic worker. If you can see how she looks, if you can hear what she says, she told me that sometimes she thinks of drinking poison because she looks like a dog.
I'm going to do this, ne? You know, my follow-up question even is okay. I'm going to ask for verbal permission from her if she's willing to show her face. One of the problems that we do is we are running away from shock therapy, where we show, if we say there's a war in Ukraine, we just think war, it's a debate word. But when you actually see what is happening, it gets you. So what we're going to do is, after this podcast, we're going to request her to say, how far can we tell your story? If she's willing to share her pictures, she'll give us consent, and then we'll put a picture here just to show her story. Yes.
Yes, I just want to add
yes.
something on it, that she's fragile now, because many people has been going to her, promising her that, and that the lawyers, they have promised her a lot of things. They've taken pictures of her, movies. Others took a movie for 2 days there, showing her face, but she never got anything. So I know that she will do this because she has hope. And I told her that she's alive because God has a purpose. Others didn't have a chance to tell their story. So God has a purpose for her, and she has to give people the testimony about her, how she narrowly escaped that.
I'm deliberately, I do not want to ask the content of a story. But also, I don't want to look as if I'm downplaying her incident. So you reckon her story is already out there in the media?
Yes, even
I know of
pictures are there.
yes, I know of her post pictures, her afterwards pictures.
Yes. Yeah, there are pictures of her face out there. I can even give it to you. She will allow it, even though she hates to look at herself in the mirror.
When I wanted to ask a story before I was disturbed, I wanted to ask a question to say, when you say those guys have the audacity, I don't want you to be afraid. Are they white people?
Yes, they are white people. And
are they Afrikaners?
They are Afrikaners. And we must put it straight that it has to do with her background, her race, and that she's a woman. Domestic workers in South Africa are black women who, most of them come from poor background, and employers are taking advantage of that, are exploiting that. Because domestic workers cannot fight back for themselves, they show that they can afford to pay lawyers. They can even bring 3 lawyers. I'm not scared to say this, 3 lawyers in court while the domestic worker is disfigured. Her legs, her arms, when she's walking, people are looking at her. She's wearing a mask. She's hiding her face every day, even at home she's hiding her face because she doesn't want to see how she looks. In humanity, at least they could have compensated her. They could have visited her at the hospital. They never did that. Why? Because she's a black, poor woman who was a domestic worker. Because they undervalue domestic workers.
Apologies to the audience who is watching this. If you are triggered, I'm very sorry about this. It is the raw emotion that we have to discuss to talk about the plight of African women. African women are our mothers. If we are not the ones who defend them, no one will. If we do not tell their stories, no one will. This white family has the audacity to buy lawyers, you say. That chunk of money could even be spent without even going to court. COIDa is compensation of people working at
COIDa.
COIDa.
The domestic workers have COIDa because of me. The case of Maria Mahlangu, I'm the person behind that case in Pretoria. The case of Maria Mahlangu, a domestic worker who fell into a swimming pool and drowned in Ferryclan. I worked from 2012 until 2020, until the Constitutional Court ordered the Minister of Labour to include domestic workers in COIDa with immediate effect. And the Constitutional Court ruling applied retrospectively to 27 April 1994. The greatest victory that was ever seen in South Africa about domestic workers, even in the world, because even other people from other countries are hearing and learning about Maria Mahlangu. They travel to South Africa to hear about Mahlangu, how domestic workers got COIDa. It's very unfortunate that you'll never hear see or hear about me a lot, but I want to say it here that I'm the person behind domestic workers being included in COIDa. I do the ground floors. I'm the ground force. I did the spade work in this case of Maria Mahlangu until it reached a Constitutional Court. Yes, along the way, there were people, you were represented by Seri, which I met in 2016, while I started in 2012. And Seri represented us in 2016, and there were other organizations that were said they were the second applicant or whatever, those organizations of lawyers that were included there. But I'm the person behind it.
Thank you very much for that. You reckon had they, when hiring her, doing the UIF, the COIDa, all those compensations, had they done that properly, you think at least some compensation would have been given, even though we still expected humanity, Ubuntu that we always praise that African people have and the white people do not have. You think had that been done, if proper registration of hiring a domestic worker, if that was done properly, she could have at least gotten something?
When I was in Potchefstroom, I sent Mr. Musandlo, a labor inspector here at the Department of Labor, her ID numbers. He checked for me and he sent me a message, actually a screenshot, and said, yes, she is registered. Yes, she was registered, and she was registered after the accident. Before, yes, she was not registered before. She was registered after with the UIF, and she did benefit from it as well.
Isn't that proof in itself? Is the court still on?
Yes, the court is on, but I want to explain this, that the court case that she's going in Potchefstroom, that the magistrate court, she's not going to be compensated or get anything there. If the employers are found guilty, they will be charged with Animal Act, which is going to say they can be served 2 years in jail or fine. And obviously, the employers will never go to jail for 2 years for a domestic worker. They will pay, and she will never get that justice. She won't get any compensation. The only thing that is needed is for her to get real compensation. As we speak, I've taken her case to CCMA, and knowing that it is late, I applied for condonation, and I stated that she was going in and out of hospital, she was going for checkups, she was even scared to go in the street. Guess what? The employers opposed it. As I'm saying that I'm busy, I'm responding to that. They applied an opposing condonation that the CCMA must not grant her condonation. They don't want to see her getting anything. They just don't value a life of a black woman. They will do anything just to see a black woman going naked with nothing in the street. That's what they are doing to that poor woman. If you can see her, if you can listen to her, if you can speak with her, I'm telling the truth. When I'm with her, I don't eat. She can see this and she will eat this. I can buy her food, she will eat, I don't eat. Because of the situation she's in. And she took her time, her service, and rendered it to people, thinking that I'm working for people. People who will see that I'm with. People who will see that I'm a human being like them. But at the end of the day, their dogs are more valued than Selina Kokolosi.
I have done a podcast with someone who breeds these dogs, and I constantly asked him, in terms of compensation, why are these people not punished? Because we've got laws that does that. And let me tell you, I'm not happy with how South Africa is going, and I look. When this thing has ambushed me, I do not think honest South Africans hearing this story, honest South Africans, I was listening to Mam Kwebani on the podcast at EFF and understanding her story. I wish she was still in office, because it's women like her. It's women like her who we think you would know lawyers who would come here and do their pro bono work to rescue one of your own. The EFF prides itself with women who do that. And when we call, so this is a call out. We are reaching out to people all over South Africa to say, here is a case. We've got law firms of African people who always say they are not given cases. This is a chance to do justice to
Mama Selina Kokolosi,
to an African victim. She's clearly a martyr to this, because the questions that I wanted to, in my head, I don't even know where to go, because another question I wanted to ask you is the registrations of this in this trade, the companies that register people. Do you call it au-pair work? The work that you do where it's just for a Friday. You just call someone, they bring a domestic worker who will remain with the kids, and then they go. Whether you call it au-pair, the agencies that do this, are you happy with the work that they do?
There's a lot of exploitation of domestic workers there. I don't know how they operate, but what I've heard from the domestic workers, they are not registered with the UIF. They don't even know where to go if they have problems, whether they should go and open the case at CCMA for the agent or for the client. They have. So I don't know how they work, and I don't want to have anything to do with them.
So those companies, COSATU pushed a motion for many years of labor brokers. So those people, because they're intermediaries, they are shielding the evil employers, and they are not really employed by those agencies. And in terms of accountability, it becomes difficult for the domestic workers. That's what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And as I'm saying to you, that I don't have any relationship with them, and I don't want to work with them. To me, domestic work is a struggle. To them, it's a business. And that's the blood and sweat of a black woman.
As the matter stands, in South Africa, we are confronted with people who say, if I hire through the law a South African domestic worker, I'll be in problems. So I'd rather take my Zimbabwean, Lesotho, and Swaziland domestic workers who are not registered, who I keep their IDs. If I'm not happy, I give them, they run away. Do you please share stories with us?
Those are acts of extreme cruelty. They don't take them because they feel sorry for them, that they want to employ them. They take them because they want to exploit them. They want to slave them, to enslave them so that they work without stopping. I'm telling you, black women as employers, not all of them, I must not be misquoted, not all of them, but many of them are madams from hell. They treat other women, I don't know like what, like trash. I once said some harsh words, that picking panties on the floor doesn't make them less human than them. The way they treat black women. Auntie will be the first one to wake up in the house. She'll even run baths for children. Auntie will be the last one to sleep after 11 if there's a party at 1 o'clock. And how much is Auntie Kate getting? Not even 5,000 rand. She works Monday to Sunday.
So there must be overtime.
They must. When do they rest? I even hate those rooms. It's better the outside room. At least the domestic worker can lock herself outside and be quiet and have some peace. If you are sleeping inside the house and the owners of the house are not sleeping, how are you going to sleep? Because you know your place there. You know that you are a worker there. So as long as they are busy up and down, you will not sleep. And they will sleep until at 1 o'clock the next day. You are expected to wake up again at 5 o'clock and make sure that everything is fine in the house. Where's humanity?
I was told by women that some get to an extreme cases where they know Mondays are blue Mondays because you'll wash dishes from Friday night. Is it true?
It's true. It happens. If they have parties over the weekend, their friends will come because Pinky's got a domestic work. Pinky didn't think that she could be so high. She could be a madam herself. She could be on the other side of a table. She will make sure that the domestic worker sweats in the house. She will make sure that people see that Pinky is an employer there and that poor woman is a worker there.
I spoke about the difficulty of African men condemning wrong deeds for women. Does it make you be appreciated less by affluent African women in COIDa because you are calling them out? I was told lots of horrors that domestic workers face in and around my space. The hardships that domestic workers do. And someone told me that one of the best ways is maintain a relationship between worker and employer. That is the best way, because the mistake we do, we bring them in, they become part of the family. These domestic workers, I'm talking about the ones that you represent and the ones that you do not represent. What kind of, besides you, because you are not an ombudsman, is there an existing ombudsman where an employer can go and report a domestic worker who's not doing good by their contractual obligation, whether written or not, or an employee who can go and report a bed, because you know there are books, it's not really book but figuratively, there are books where sex pests are recorded, and I feel in all honesty that our African women, the hardship they go through, sometimes a bad employer must be recorded in those books. Is there an ombudsman that exists?
Not that I know of.
So the work that you do, you become an unpaid ombudsman, where you hear cases of the industry and you try to resolve.
Yeah, that's true. When I started, I was even called a volunteer in another union. This is actually my 24th year. I started with domestic workers in 2000, when I was still young and inexperienced. I've been working with domestic workers all these years. So I was a volunteer from the beginning. I volunteered to go with them to their employers. When in 2002, when the first sectoral determination by the then Minister of Labour, Mbatisi Mdladlane, yes, I still remember Shepherd Mbatisi Mdladlane, there were many employers who were reducing the salaries of the domestic workers, saying, "Daar man van julle het gesê dat ons gee jou baie geld, so you are supposed to get 800. That man of yours says we are giving you a lot of money, you must get 800. I volunteered. I was traveling by train from Mabopane train sector. We were a group of comrades. We were chanting in the morning and chanting back home and helping each other with work-related issues. So I will go with domestic workers. I was working as a domestic worker myself in Verde Park, I remember. I will start with the domestic workers at their workplaces and speak for them with their employers. And when I go to my employer, I will say I was arrested in the train because I was in a wrong coach. I was in a first-class coach. I just volunteered to help. I will just, anyway, when they say they've got a problem, I'll go with them. I started there, I started volunteering. Even today, I still do a lot of volunteering. And it's not easy, but it's in my blood. I can't live without it. If I don't do it, who will do it? Because domestic workers are still exploited. 30 years of democracy means nothing to many domestic workers. It's there in black and white. It's good for people with their own things. It's good for people who have everything. But for many domestic workers, there's nothing. That's why we marched this year to the union building. We marched against the peoples. We marched against sexual harassment. There's sexual harassment in this. Domestic workers are raped by employers, some domestic workers by some employers. And they fear even to open cases because nobody will believe them. One domestic worker told the woman employer that your husband Mr. is doing this, and then she was dismissed immediately by that woman. She thought that I'd want to speak with a woman to woman and tell her that what his husband is doing to me. She was dismissed immediately. So there's a lot that's happening behind those closed doors of domestic workers. A lot is happening, I'm telling you. Rape is happening. And some, they just persevere and say, I'm working for my children. If I leave this job, how am I going to survive? Sometimes they even call it, it's like a survival sex, just for them to keep working.
Yes.
I was called by a domestic worker in Middelburg after a radio interview. She said to me, she was asked by the man, she's working for black people. The woman was fighting with the man, the madam, that you are spoiling her. I think you've got an affair with her. The man asked her to leave the job, to resign.
To keep the peace at home?
To keep the peace at home.
And were there sexual relations? Were they sexual?
No,
just wrong allegations.
Yes, there were allegations because you know sometimes
the man was kind, the woman was harsh. You know. To prove to the wife that I did not have sexual relations, you can let her go.
Yeah, and who's at the receiving end?
She loses out.
Poor domestic worker was sent home for insecurity of madam. She was there waiting for a family, so there's a lot that's happening. Others, they can't open cases, even fearing for victimization. They say they are at the police station, they'll be told, do you have a witness? Did you record that? So how are you going to prove your case? So they see no need to.
So, Namsa Diaka, she's in her 30s, and the general societal norm is you do not hire anyone who is in and around your husband's hitting range. Dr. Pebonkor ke akaya kere. Yes, so is it, do you, because if it's a myth, I want us to demystify it. Barwa tlhanya, lo wena mos you were setting up yourself. So is it, I don't want to say is it wise, because what it would then do is that we will not have young domestic workers. And domestic work is sometimes not a calling, but it's a way of survival.
Yes.
Women do not ask for job because they want. If they could, there would be lawyers and doctors and they could choose a position. If Namsa Diaka, like I said, she's in her 30s, she would, I would think, she would not hire someone who's in her 30s, 40s, and 20s, because that person would be in my hitting range. Is that consistent with what you see in the field?
Yes. Most of our black employers, they want a little bit older woman. They don't, as you're saying,
Yes.
the young ones, maybe they fear that they will have the affairs with their husbands or whatever. So what I'm saying, and I always say that the domestic workers should know why they are there in the first place. They are not there to destroy marriages. They must look back where they come from. They must respect their job. They must know where to draw the line. And they must tell these men to stop it. They must stop them. And if they don't, they must open cases against them. If they have those words trying to entice or seduce domestic workers, I think they should put their cell phones and record them in their breast and record them. Because they know if the woman leaves, the man will come and say this. As soon as the madam leaves, put your phone on record and put it here. And let the law deal with the master of the house. Because it is happening.
So it does happen.
It does happen.
And
I had a case of sexual harassment here in Pretoria. And it was at the CCMA. It was the senior commissioner who was sitting at that case. It was my first sexual harassment case, and the commissioner, Moro, I still respect him. Yes. The domestic worker was only 6 weeks working. She was from Lesotho, and she was told by the employer that she asked to go to her boyfriend during the 16 June weekend. It was a long weekend. And she was asked that, why do you go to Rustenburg to look for something that you have here in the house? Saying himself, master. So the domestic worker left and went to the boyfriend. When she came back, she was chased out of the house at night. She slept at the police station in that side of Clubview. She slept at the police station. She phoned the police, and then she was given my numbers. Then I assisted her, and that case went well. For 6 weeks that she worked, she got a compensation of 3 months. That was something. She didn't live with nothing there.
They say the Lesotho domestic workers are those that you must run away from, because there is a lot of allegations. Because remember, if you're on this side, you'll call it allegation. When you are on the other side, you'll call it something else. They say, because when you mentioned Lesotho, I wanted to say it before you do. They call them 051. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. You spoke about the exploitations, right? Of people. They are not helping the Zimbabweans and the Lesotho women. They are doing it because they want to cut costs, and they believe because these ones are not documented, they will be silenced more. If women say a living wage stops us from being employed, African women, I don't know who's the employer, you will advise me. Is it the father or is it the mother in the setting? Women say we want to employ them, fine, but at the rate we are paying them, it's going to be difficult for us to afford them, but we want them. So I want to give an example. So if Mama Mashiane, Kamorainga Mashiane, wants a domestic worker, but she realizes she cannot afford, she gets a lady from Lesotho who comes on Friday, Saturday, when the mother of the house is home. She does the ironing or the, yes, I told you about the allegations. just so she could keep the hours per week or exceed what is recommended. Do you find that as cheating, or is it fine because she doesn't want the person to work too much so they could employ them?
It's not fine. The weekend, the hours are not rating the same over the weekend.
Oh.
Are they getting double a salary for Sundays because they're supposed to get like public holiday? And on Saturday, it's a 1.5, overtime 1.5. So are they getting that? Because still they might be underpaying them and exploiting them. How many hours are they working for that weekend? They give them the 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, to do the whole week's work. What time do they start and what time do they knock off? How much is the salary? Is it in accordance with the minimum wage?
So you say, I spoke about au pair and I spoke about people doing just minor jobs, coming for ironing or for washing, because that person cannot afford a full-time
The law
helper.
says if you hire a domestic worker, I don't know whether you call hire what,
Yes.
she's working for you for 2 hours, you must pay her for 4 hours. If you say...
Oh, so 4 hours is a standard.
Yeah.
Whether you allowed her to work for an hour, you must pay for
4 hours.
Okay, so call-out fees are based on 4 hours.
And it's unfortunate that many domestic workers don't know about that because they could even open cases of underpayment with the labor department because they are supposed to be paid 4 hours.
We'll put rates here. In a village and in a big city like Johannesburg, the rates will be different?
No, in the past it was different. Why must the rates be different? Because at the shops the prices are equal. Doesn't say that here is in rural areas the prices are low. Everything goes up, taxes goes up. Same payment, they must get the same salaries. Not to say those who are working. And we know that there's a lot of exploitation there in Soshanguve, Mami, Lodi, Atteridgeville, Lodiam. I remember a case of a domestic worker in Lodiam who's not allowed to go into the house during the day. She must wait for the children. She's doing the ironing outside or in her room because they say she will steal in the house. And when she's cleaning the bedroom, the child is sitting there. She's going to the next one, they sit on the bed. They will go with her in the whole house. I spoke to her directly, that domestic work. She was up to here. She said, I'm resigning. I said, no, don't resign. Let me phone them and they'll be angry and fire you and pay you. And that's what happened.
So the determination, that sectoral determination, they would have said in Johannesburg, a living wage is this because of the standard of living is not similar, and then that is what they would do. And you said they brought that to a minimum because maybe they feel that we had
that thing, that area A and area B from the Department of Labor, where the rates in area B will be 24 rand what, and in area A 27, of which there was a discrimination. The domestic workers are equal. It doesn't matter where they are, as long as they are doing the same work, same money for same work. Doesn't matter where in the country you are. As I said, that the prices are the same.
If you have it on top of your head, please remind me. So that call-out fee of 4 hours, do you know plus minus how much could it be if it's on top of your head?
As we speak now, we're talking about 25 rand 42 cents an hour, which is going to end by end of February. As from March 2024, 1st of March, the new national minimum wage is 27 rand 58 cents an
27
hour.
times, okay, 27, you say 27 rand 58
cents
58
from March
times 4. I'm not adding anything. Okay. It gives me 110. Is that?
I didn't even want to look
calculate,
at it because I know that that's
it's
not.
little.
It's the slavery wages. The national minimum wages. We must be
honest
about it. It's not a living wage. It can be something for people who are underpaid in Lodiam. I'll mention Lodiam again because I've been there. In Eltonville, where domestic workers are still getting 2,000 rand a month. It can, if it was implemented and enforced, at least it meant something to them. But it's not a living wage. The national minimum wage. For 4 hours, for 110 rand, what am I going to do with that?
Ish.
For 4 hours, what am I going to do with that? So
Because if
that
I'm calling you Udwa Ule Attridgeville, I say come here after you're doing your ironing and then you go back.
I've paid already 40 rand for transport, I'm left with 60 rand. What am I going to do with the 60 rand?
Ish.
That's the reality in South Africa, that the poor remains poorer, and it's continuing even after 30 years of democracy. It's continuing in South Africa.
If you were to sit with Cyril Ramaphosa, the man who hired domestic workers who were not South Africans, and they palapalad his money and they ran away, and he had to use state resources to look for those people, and he lost millions.
You can ask yourself that if a statesman can do that, the head of state can do that, what about those that are under him? You can ask yourself that. Why doesn't he hire South Africans? What is it that he is hiding?
He's the one who signed the living wage, and every year it increases.
And it's the same president that in 2020 during lockdown, we sent petitions, submissions saying some domestic workers are kept against their will by employers in those estates where nobody can go there, and others were told that if you go to clinic you must not come back because your people have COVID, you are going to make us sick. And on contrary, it was the employers who infected domestic workers with COVID. It was difficult for domestic workers during that time. And we called on the president. We watched him delivering his nation address. Not once did he mention domestic workers. We can name those he mentioned, not once, while domestic workers are essential workers because they are left with a treasure. If you leave somebody with your house, with your children, with your food, it shows the importance of that person. They work as securities, guards who are not trained, without arms. They have died for insured houses of their employers while their lives were not insured. Their domestic workers were killed in the houses of their employers while they were not insured. And the employers, the next day, they hired a new domestic worker.
Gayton McKenzie says, white South Africans promote this thing because they would rather trust an undocumented person who does not have fingerprints, who does not have anything. They bring them into their own houses, whether male or female. When something happens and that person, and then they go and cry white genocide, they say their farms are being targeted, and the whole of us as South Africans, we are blamed for those farm murderers, but it's them who don't want to follow the law. Do you think if domestic workers are recorded, meaning that they will not, if they are paid well and they are known, they are registered like any other registered worker, this thing will be reduced?
I want to be honest with you. When coming to domestic workers, I see no border, because domestic work is the oldest work that has been here in South Africa. In 1956, there were domestic workers who were marching with those women to union building. They were brave enough because some of them carried their white employers' children to the union building. The migrants, domestic workers who are here in South Africa, they have to make a living. And they were driven by what has driven them to this country. And even that can happen to myself. If I can go to another country, I'll do anything to make a living, to get a salary, to put bread on the table for my children. So domestic workers, even the migrant domestic workers, they have contributed a lot in the economy of South Africa. So I want it to be clear there that I defend each and every domestic worker who's in South Africa, even all around the world.
If you were, I don't want to ask you about the horrors of Arabian countries. Far worse.
Can I get in there? We marched to Saudi Arabian embassy this year last year on the 5th of August 2023. After a domestic worker who's our members from Zimbabwe was sexually abused by 3 members of the same family. The mother, the son, and the husband. 3 exploited her sexually. They are from Saudi Arabia. They were diplomats here at the Saudi Arabian embassy. That's why we marched today. And we have heard a lot of things. We even wrote in our memorandum that we are standing in solidarity with the domestic workers who are in Saudi Arabia, the migrant domestic workers in Saudi Arabia. After we saw a video of a domestic worker who was made to feed puppies. She left her child in Kenya and she was made to feed to breastfeed puppies in Saudi Arabia. She was crying in that video.
Ish.
Yeah.
Let me go back to the question. If you were to sit with Cyril Ramaphosa, because now we are closing, if you were to sit with Cyril Ramaphosa, what are the things that come to mind that you will ask him to do?
I'll ask him for, we were part of the basic income grant, big. We are saying many domestic workers are underpaid. So if they were part of beneficiaries of that big basic income grant of 1,500, I'm not talking of 350 because I don't know, there's not even a plate of 350. You can go to your hotel, you won't eat it 350. To them it's just change. I'm not talking about 350. And that 1,500 is not a living wage, but it could have been something to people. So if the president can just make it possible for all these people who are benefiting from that social grant of 350, I don't know what it is really, to be honest. I just hate it, that 350, because it makes people to be more poorer, and it makes people believe that let's go and vote for them because they'll give us 350. They will always stay down there. We'll be waiting for a 350 every month, going nowhere, taking drugs because life is difficult for them. Waiting is to capture a mind of a poor person, to say, I'm giving you 350 every month, so make sure that I stay here.
Are there organizations that you work with? I want to leave Cyril Ramaphosa. In closing, are there any organizations that work with you, that support you, that you think you must give shout out to?
Yeah, there are organizations that we are working with, but I must also say they'll be angry with me. Anyway, they hate me for truth. There are also organizations who have made domestic workers business and make money using domestic workers. We also know that. They will be like they are supporting domestic workers while they have this big funding from wherever they got, taking pictures with domestic workers and getting those funding and not contributing anything to domestic workers. So that's why the sector is still so down. But definitely we do have some other organizations that we are working with. They have some social movements that we are working with, and the feminist movements.
Are you a union?
Yes, Udwosa is a union, United Domestic Workers of South Africa.
Does it have a federation?
We don't have a federation. We wanted to affiliate to SAF2, and Udwosa was founded in 2018 on the 16th of June. By that time, we didn't reach the number that they wanted. But we are working with other comrades. We are invited to, when they wish to invite us in their programs, we are working with them. But
if Udwosa says, come, we don't mind your numbers, or COSATU says, come, we don't want your numbers, do you think it's a good invitation, or it just opens you to quiet you down?
It's a good invitation. We'll see where to go, and it won't take us down. We come from
far.
Yeah, we come from very far to be silenced now. We'll speak for ourselves. Even as I'm saying that people are making money using domestic workers as if they are working with domestic workers while they are improving and working for their own pockets. So any union that says I will support domestic workers, I'll work with domestic workers, we will work with them, because domestic workers, to be honest, is not a one-man show or one-woman show. It needs a collaborated partnership with other organizations.
I've got lots of questions. You and I can sit here and talk for a long time. By the way, I have to say it in camera, you look like my aunt. she's a Mashiane, and I know she's going to watch this podcast. She watches my content. And you did not come alone. You came with someone, one of your members. So the reason I'm cutting short this is because we must give her space. But thank you very much for coming, and I hope this won't be the last time, because there are a lot of things that I've learned from this, and I know a lot of my viewers who have learned a lot from this. Before I let you go, whether in your professional space or as an individual, we are going to vote this year. Who do you think will win, and then who do you want to win?
You know, I don't want to say anything about who wins or who does what. As long as domestic workers are still exploited, as long as nobody comes to domestic workers and hear their problems and hear their plights and hear their troubles and sit down with them, I want to see them coming to domestic workers, not during the voting times, because now we'll get invitation that we are having a lunch with this, we are having a lunch with who and who, just because they want the domestic workers' votes. They must come down to us when there are no elections, then we can talk.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Sure.